Hey, what's up? It's your boy Rawk, and thank you for choosing Good Enough Productions, your one-stop shop for products and services that are, you guessed it, good enough. Our products and services thrive due to one simple reason. They have nothing in the way of competition, which means that their quality doesn't matter, because you have no alternatives. Why should Earl's Hot Dog Bonanza provide a more quality product when he's already monopolized that market? What are you gonna do, buy hot dogs from someone else? Don't be fucking ridiculous. One such product is Nintendo SpaceWorld, an event dedicated to revealing video games and being mediocre. But considering it survived 6 glorious years from 1989 to 1994 with no competitors, I'd say that it fits the bill of good enough. Oh, f***. We've never had to deal with anything like this before. Somebody get Make It Better Industries on the line, stat! Everything on Earth has a natural predator, even video game press conferences. Let's take a minute to recap. Nintendo SpaceWorld! It exists. What did you achieve today? Previously known as the Shoshinikai Software Exhibition, this show made its debut in 1989, and was Nintendo's way of revealing up-and-coming games and systems and disappointments to gamers all across the world in Japan. The first 6 years of this show's existence were pretty decent, seeing the reveal of the Super Famicom, the Nintendo 64, and the Virtual Boy, along with a respectable helping of software. They had Pilot Wings, what more could you want? But the thing with Nintendo SpaceWorld at this point is that there was no real showmanship, and while there were some decent reveals, it was never really anything to write home about. Then in came 1995, the year of change. This was the year that a little gaming press conference known as E3 decided to take a stab at the existence market, bringing together industry giants, including Nintendo, to reveal their upcoming products all within the same span of time. Now in the beginning, E3 fell victim to a lot of the same flaws as Nintendo SpaceWorld did prior. A general lack of showmanship and spectacle. But that all changed with one simple number.
299.
That was the catalyst for E3 to become what we know it as today. This was no longer an event for companies to show consumers what they had coming soon. This was an event that these companies were trying to win. This motivated companies to make their shows better and better, so that they could say, "F*** Sony, the Xbox is so much better. It has Halo." Alright, that's fair. What else you got? You sure you don't want to talk about Halo some more? The inception of E3 may seem like more than enough reason for Nintendo to put an end to their SpaceWorld events right then and there, but they obviously saw merit in them, because sure enough, 1995 had its own Nintendo SpaceWorld event. Meanwhile, Nintendo at E3 1995 talked about piracy. Just piracy, nothing else. Why aren't people buying our consoles? Nintendo needed to prove the worth of SpaceWorld now that E3 was on the scene, which is why I consider their SpaceWorld shows to fall into 2 distinct categories: post-1995 and bad. Well, I think now's as good a time as any to pick up right where we left off and take a look at another batch of Nintendo SpaceWorld events. And if you disagree, well, I didn't ask you, fuckface. Let's get this show on the road. 1995 saw the grand re-reveal of the Nintendo Ultra 64, which had now been demoted to simply the Nintendo 64. You know a console's doing well when it has to be revealed thrice. The console was shown off alongside 13 games: Super Mario 64, Kirby Ball 64, which would become Kirby Air Ride roughly 7 decades later, Zelda 64, Mario Kart 64. That's a weird way of counting to 13. Nintendo had planned on bringing 12 playable demos to their 1995 event, but removed 10 of them at the last second for unknown reasons, leaving attendees with a choice of Super Mario 64 or Kirby Ball 64. Which one do you think people gravitated towards? Yeah, Mario 64 was pushed hard at this event, and for good reason. Meanwhile, Zelda 64 and Mario Kart 64 were shown off in video reels that were more concept proposals than anything else, and Kirby Ball 64 was Kirby Ball 64. Nintendo also revealed the 64DD peripheral. What's that? I don't know,
But it's coming out at the end of 1996, so get excited!
Revealing an add-on to a system before the system itself is even released? Yikes. I wasn't personally in attendance at Nintendo SpaceWorld 1995 because I was too busy not being born yet, but I can imagine this didn't make attendees feel great about Nintendo's upcoming system and what it was capable of. Nintendo didn't really reveal anything major about the 64DD, but the fact that it existed at all was still pretty worrying. 1996 was all about the 64DD, with a launch window of 1997 being slated, the tech specs finalized, and a few games being shown running on the system, such as Super Mario 64. What a way to sell this thing. Nintendo was sure to show some non-DD games though, as they didn't want to give consumers the impression that the cartridge format the Nintendo 64 was utilizing was dead on arrival. They very much did not succeed in that, but we got a couple of notable games here. We got to see prototype projects that would eventually become the Mario Studio games, released exclusively on the 64DD, one becoming Talon Studio and the other becoming Pain Studio. And we also saw 3 games for the base N64, being Yoshi's Island 64, Star Fox 64, and Earthbound 64. Star Fox 64 was shown off alongside the Jolting Pack, later known as the Rumble Pack, and Earthbound 64 is notable because it exists. 1997, the year that Nintendo SpaceWorld became Nintendo SpaceWorld. Goodbye, Shoshinikai Software Exhibition, and hello, Game Boy Camera. This year's event was huge! Seeing so many hardware and software reveals. I know I said 1995 was the year things changed, but 1997 was the year things became good. Now, let's get the bad stuff out of the way first and foremost. Nintendo delayed the 64DD.
Oh! Unacceptable!
I know, it's heartbreaking. Living in 2022 and hearing that the 64DD was delayed to 1998, it truly does make my heart hurt. But, to soften the blow, Nintendo did reveal 6 new accessories. The Game Boy printer, the transfer pack, the N64 mouse, the voice recognition unit, the Game Boy camera! All were revealed at this event, as well as the first look at the next generation of Pokemon, with Pokemon Gold and Silver. This simultaneously makes complete sense, and no sense whatsoever. This was the first time we caught a whiff of the Game Boy at a SpaceWorld event, which is absolutely baffling to me. But the fact that the first Game Boy related things they showed off were Pokemon and the Game Boy camera makes all the sense in the world. They were why you bought a Game Boy. Pokemon was the main focus of the show, alongside a new look at Zelda 64. And even though not much was shown off, people were already anticipating this game being even better than Super Mario 64. They were not wrong. Nintendo also revealed F-Zero X and 1080 snowboarding, because nothing screams buy an N64 louder than 1080 snowboarding. But if that doesn't quite tickle your fancy, we can always take a look at the third-party support at this show.
What third-party support?
Another year, another reason the Nintendo 64 wasn't looking to be a success. Third parties were basically non-existent at this show, and that didn't go unnoticed by attendees. And combined with the 64DD delay and the incredibly poor sales of the Nintendo 64 at this point in its life, made this show something of a bleak one for Nintendo's latest console, despite how good the showings this year were. The final show we're taking a look at today is SpaceWorld 1998, where Nintendo showed off
they showed nothing.
Nintendo did not hold a SpaceWorld event in 1998. Did we hurt their feelings? Was it because nobody wanted a 64DD? Well, it wasn't not because of that. Nintendo straight up did not have any 64DD games to show off. And considering they were putting all of their stock into this add-on as opposed to the Nintendo 64, that meant they also didn't have any games to show for that system. So they just didn't bother having a show.
Well, that's a depressing note to end on. I thought 1995 was the start of Nintendo SpaceWorld's redemption, the time when it became something really worth getting excited over. But that didn't end up being the case at all. The shows from 1995 to 1998 only really helped to highlight one thing. the Nintendo 64 was in trouble. The development struggles that came with making the jump from 2D to 3D, combined with the fact that Nintendo was prioritizing an add-on that would end up being a catastrophic failure, meant that the Nintendo 64 had barely any games worth caring about. And because of that, SpaceWorld suffered. 1997's show was probably better than all of the pre-95 shows combined, but it was unfortunately an anomaly. So, how many throne controllers out of 7 am I gonna give this batch of shows? Make It Better Industries didn't do shit for us.